Okay, so welcome to Unit 3.5 video lessons. You're here because you have finished Unit 3 review notes as well as a practice. Now, 3.5 is on transforming or rewriting equations and formulas. Yes, you have been introduced to this lesson briefly right before the winter break. Now, this unit, I named it 3.5 as a mini lesson before Unit 4. Now, this lesson that you will be having on 3.5, it's a concept that you need to do Unit 4, where you will be graphing equations and writing equations on your own just from graphs. So, transforming equations and formulas. The focus question that you need to be paying attention to is, how can you move numbers or variables across the equal sign? For example, you have 3x on the left side of equal sign, and how are you going to move it to the right side? So please keep this question in mind. You can highlight it just so that it's an emphasis on its importance. The goal for you in this unit is to rearrange formulas and equations to isolate specific variables. For example, if you need to, if you have an equation, you have y equals 3 plus x, then you'll be solving for only y, or you could be solving for only x. What I want to point out to you is that in this lesson, you will be dealing with equations that have two variables. For example, it's not just 2x plus 1, but you could also have 2x plus y equals 6. So you have one variable here, but you also have another variable, which is unlike the equations that you have always done before, where you only had one variable. For example, you had 2x plus 1 is equal to 6. These are the type of equations that you have seen, but now you'll be looking at equations that have two or more variables. Here, we're not going to be able to get number answers because there are two variables. You have x and y. You don't have enough information, so the answers that you get is not always going to be answers. So before we continue, I would like all of you to make sure that you have your name, date, period written at the top. You should have this in front of you as you're watching the video. If you don't, you need to go to the side of the classroom from the blue bin. You're going to pick up these notes. This should be in salmon color. So let's continue. I said that you are going to be dealing with equations that have more than one variables. And when you have more than one variable in an equation, you have this thing called a literal equation. So let's fill out this blank here from the first sentence. An equation that has two or more variables, I should have an S there, is called a literal equation. Have it right down. Now I said literal equation two or more variable, meaning that I'm just going to give you an example. 2x plus y is 6, and you have two variables. You have an x and you have a y. Basically, it's an equation with many variables. Now, to rewrite a literal equation, you have to solve one variable in terms of the others. So for example, 2x plus y equals 6. You have x and you have y. And I'm going to ask you to either solve for y or x. And I'll show you what these look like in the practice. So let's move on to example number 1. Example number 1, where you will be rewriting an equation. So let's look at the first one. It says to solve the equation for y. Now, for the purpose of the next unit, which is unit 4, we're going to take our equations and get the y by itself. I'm always going to ask you to just solve for y, meaning your answer should be something like this. Y equals. You're going to have y by itself. But in theory, you could get the x by itself as well, meaning you can have x equals as an answer. But it's not what we're going to do in this lesson. We're going to only solve for y because that relates to what we will be doing in the next unit, and you will be asked to solve for other variables later on in the future. Okay? So, for this equation, 5x plus y equals 10. Since we need y by itself, we have to move 5x, that's on the left side, we're going to have to move it to the right side. And then we're going to have to get rid of that 5x here. To do that, I'm going to drop down the equal sign just to separate the left side and the right side. And to move 5x, which is positive 5, I'm going to do the opposite and subtract 5x from both sides. 5x minus 5x cancels out. You're only left with y equals. Now, 10 and minus 5x, 10's a number, 5x has x next to it, so these are not like terms. We can't simplify them. I want you to leave them just the way it is, so it'll be just 10 minus 5x. And if you notice, the y is by itself, so you have solved for y, and your answer is just y equals 10 minus 5x. And basically, without having a number as an answer, your answer is an equation. Okay? Now let's try the second problem. This one is 2y plus 5x is equal to 6. Again, you're solving for y. You need y by itself, meaning you need to get rid of that plus 5x, and you also have to get rid of the 2. Again, this is plus 5x, so we're going to do the opposite. To move it to the other side, we're going to subtract 5x both sides. And again, if you do want to, you can drop down a line, just if that helps you, to separate the left side and the right side. So 5x minus 5x cancels out. Now you're only left with 2y equals, now it's 6 minus 5x. You can't combine them, so again, you leave them just the way it is. 6 minus 5x. Now we're going to get rid of the 2. This is 2 times y. Multiplication, opposite of multiplying is division. So we're going to divide both sides by 2. But now, here's something I would like all of you to pay attention to. Usually, when we divide one side by 2, we have to divide the other side by 2. But since this right side has multiple pieces, everything has to divide by 2. So I'm going to divide 6 by 2 and negative 5x by 2. It might look unbalanced right now because you're doing once to the left and what seems twice to the right, but you can't just divide one piece if the other ones divide as well. So every piece has to divide. You might want to annotate or note somewhere on the side or on the top so that you have to divide all of the terms. So you can write a note to yourself. This is very important. Now, if that 2's cancel out, you're only left with y equals. Now, 6 divided by 2 is 3. And now, negative 5 divided by 2. 2 does not divide into 5 evenly. So what I would like you to do is leave it in fraction form. Just negative 5 over 2x. That's fine. And that's because 2 does not divide into 5. I don't need you to have decimal answer. You can just leave it as a fraction. And since you have solved for y, you only have y by itself. That is your answer. Y equals 3 minus 5 over 2x. Now there are the notes that I would like you to annotate, things that you need to keep in mind. I want to make a note that when you divide, you have to divide all of the terms. Let's underline all, because over here, when you divide it by 2 on the left side, you have to divide both p's by 2. You have to divide all of them. That's one term. 6 is one term. Negative 5x is second term. And you have to divide all of them by 2. So they're all on the right side together. So please make a note of that. That's very important. Now the second part I want you to remember, please leave fractions. Don't you can just leave your answer in fraction form if they do not go in evenly. So this one, negative 5 over 2. 2 does not divide into 5, so I allowed you to leave it in fraction. You can always do that for this lesson and pretty much from now on in your math academic life, unless the teacher tells you to change it to decimal form. Okay? So that's the end of the first video of Unit 3.5. Now, if you think you can try these on your own, you are more than welcome to. You can just pause the video and just do it on your own and maybe come back to the video and check. Otherwise, you can just follow along. But I'm going to actually continue this in the next video. So this is the end of the first video. Please check back on video 2 for these. It should be titled Trying on Your Own. Okay?